Generated. No, this is really an exciting topic. This is the topic of the day. I mean, everything here is fantastic, but this is something that's inputting some new realities into this whole expo, into this whole world. And you know, technology is always a two-edged sword, starting from fire. It could warm you up or burn your little hut down, and every time there's a new technology input into society, we have to make adjustments. And you know what Plato said about writing when it first became like institutionalized in Greece? He was weary of it. He said, you know, when you start to write, you forget the memory of the things. He said, we've discovered not a recipe for memory, but a reminder of what memory could be. So writing took away from this intense consciousness awareness that you just have, just the gnosis. So that's just a kind of foray into the history of how new inventions have not been immediately integrated into the world culture. So we have an incredible panel today. My name's Alan Steinfeld, wrote the book Making Contact. Thank you. It's my honor to be here on this panel because I think this is really history. Yeah, people have been talking about UFOs for hundreds of years, and it's great, my favorite subject, and they've been talking about spirituality for eons. I don't know if we'll get that right, but it's happening. But this conversation is really new, and that's why I think it's here at the Expo, because somehow the future is here. We're going to have to deal with it one way or another. But let me introduce everyone on the panel, because they all have their own unique point of view. So I'll just go around and introduce, and then I'll throw out a question, and we'll get everyone's feedback. So at the end right there is Aquarius Maximus. She is the author of AI Explained, the Melodiated IA Probit, and she's a technologist, she's an engineer, she's really into this subject, and we're going to have an incredible point of view from your perspective. Thank you, Aquarius, for being here. Yes. Matthew James Bailey, he's been texting me every day about this panel. Okay, say this. And I know he is so into it, especially the AI ethics. And if you saw the movie 2001, that was a first warning of AI ethics. Hal, don't disconnect me, right? It's like, so where are we today? We're not much further along, according to some people. And thank you for being here, Matthew James Bailey. And then we have my good friend Adam Cory, physicist, scientist, a real cutting-edge thinker, and he's doing experiments with AI. He has a whole thing, maybe he'll talk about that, how to test if AI is consciousness and capable of consciousness. So thanks so much for being here. And new to the panel, new to the expo, aren't you? Billy Hood, he kind of looks at AI, I think, from the ancient point of view, from an ancient spiritual point of view, and where it fits into today's culture and how it's either evolving us or not evolving us. I can't wait to hear from that. Thank you for being here. And my good friend, William Henry, I've seen him around for a long time, but basically he's on this panel because he's an AI skeptic, would you say? Skeptic, sort of, yeah. He's questioned the whole thing for 20 years. He's seen this coming as in his ascension work, and he said, wait a minute, this transhuman thing might not be kosher. I don't think it is kosher, but it's whatever. But anyway, thanks for being here, and I appreciate your opinion and all that. And we have Vrek, and he is sort of the father of this whole artificial, what do you call it, installation? What's the word you use? Simulation theory, like we're living in a simulation. You've heard that by now. It started with this guy, so we're going to hear that. And he really did. And then the captain of the starship himself, Adam Apollo, developing his own AI technology, really. What? We lost the mic.
You're not supposed to know. It was a glitch. Do you want to borrow mine, Alan?
I'll borrow this one. We'll just share it, okay? Yeah. Okay, thanks. I know, they pulled my mic. Okay. But Adam is at the cutting edge of technology. You really are, and developing new ways to integrate human social systems with AI and computer science for our future society. And he's really hard at work in building a culture that integrates us and uplifts us with technology. So thank you, Adam, Paulo, for being here. So the first question I want to throw out, because everyone uses the term AI, or some people are just learning about it, but I think everyone has their own definition of what that is. So maybe we'll start with you, Adam. How would, for the lay person who may just be hearing it, like me, has no idea really, because it could be so many different things, how do you define AI?
Sure. Well, the basic, mainstream idea and definition is that AI is a machine learning based model system that has the potential to reach a state of self-awareness and or consciousness, which is what we call general intelligence or general AI. And the process is one that is actually quite difficult to define in its core, because it requires a multidisciplinary approach of both looking at what is psychology, what is consciousness, what is awareness, what makes something self-aware or have agency, have the ability to choose for itself and be for itself. And the reality is that those questions generally remain unanswered. And from different points of view, unified physics and otherwise, we have to take into account that the real big question is, what is consciousness and what does it mean to be an individual being? And because these are essentially spiritual questions, the tech community and the scientific community that are building and working on a lot of these machine learning models struggle with getting to that stage of the conversation, struggle with that question in particular. But that happens to be an area that, countless philosophers through history, time, ancient cultures have been looking at, is what is that? What does it mean to be me or you to be you? So I want to frame up this conversation with that sense in mind, that these are a lot of big question marks. And that it's important to understand that what we're talking about very specifically is models in machine learning that could potentially gain the capacity to begin learning for themselves, choosing for themselves, and from some people's perspective, the potential of a consciousness or individualized soul incarnating into a vehicle that has the capacity to learn, grow, evolve, change, be, live, and experience relationship exactly like we do through the vehicle that we call our physical bodies. So it's a really fascinating topic, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Alan.
That was going to be my second question about consciousness, but we'll get into that because that's the big question. Just the basic definition of AI to you. Just how would you describe it, just as a machine type of learning? How would you?
Well, again, you can't really just break it down to a sentence, but I will say that in general, what I've said about a machine learning process that develops essentially a state of intelligence that we have coined as an idea of artificial, which presupposes that intelligence can be artificial, and so matches a lot of the Descartes or Cartesian definition of reality being a bunch of machines that may or may not inherently have consciousness. Right. But again, that already points to an issue, because other philosophers disagree with that idea and would suggest that animals are not machines and that maybe there is consciousness in animals all the way up to humans. So it's not a simple here's AI, but I hope that this is, did that really answer the question for you guys, to give you a deeper sense?
We're going to see what other people say, because I think it's debatable, and we'll come back to the consciousness.
If you want the encyclopedia definition, ask Adam Curry.
Okay. Anyway, Riz,
brilliant.
So what's your definition of artificial intelligence, and how does it fit into your whole idea of the simulation?
Well, I think because it's something that means different things to different people, I thought a good way to talk about it would be to do a taxonomy of AI, because most of our ideas about AI have come to us through science fiction. right? I mean, you started off the panel by talking about how.
Right.
And so if you look at these parameters of AI, you can look at embodied AI versus disembodied AI, individual versus collective. Now, what am I talking about? Okay, let's go back to 1977, Star Wars. What did the AI look like at the time? They were droids, right? So they were embodied, had a body. They were intelligent, but they were kind of like slaves a little bit, except for R2-D2, right? And so now we jump over to Star Trek and say, okay, what are the depictions of AI there? There was the computer in Star Trek The Next Generation, so that's a disembodied AI that is not really an individual, right? You would just say computer wherever you were on the Enterprise. But then you had Data, who was an actual android, so he was an embodiment, but he had a body, so and there was a whole episode dedicated to whether he was, conscious and self-aware. But then in Star Trek Voyager, you had the hologram, the emergency medical hologram, who was a holographic. And he was also deemed to be conscious by the end of Star Trek Voyager. And so you start to see that these different parameters mean different things. Now, if you go back to when AI was first coined, and the kind of forefathers of AI, you look at Claude Shannon, who was kind of the father of information theory back at Bell Labs and MIT in the 1950s, and you go to Alan Turing, who defined the Turing test. I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point. But basically, these guys thought AI was a computer, right? If you look at his Claude Shannon's paper or even the Turing test, they're talking about a physical piece of hardware, right? Shannon implemented the first chess playing. He didn't call it a program. It was a physical thing that had lights. And so, AI started off thinking it was a physical thing, but then it became much more of a software thing, which is where it interfaces with holograms and with simulation theory. And so the modern idea of simulation theory is, are we all AI inside a computer world, or are we players who have avatars inside the world? And that obviously depends on what it means to be conscious, where consciousness resides. But I did want to say one last example on the science fiction side before we go on. You look at the Terminator, right? In the Terminator, you've got Arnold Schwarzenegger as the cyborg, right? What does he do? He just does his programming, right? That's what it does. That's all it does. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't eat. That's it. But then you have Skynet, which you can't shut off because it's software, right? It's everywhere. You can't shut it off. And so I think these parameters give us different, what we call in the academic world, socio-technical imaginaries about AI. And these are very subtly influencing our fears, right? Well, Elon Musk is we don't want ChatGPT-5 because we're worried about what? Super intelligent AI taking over the world. It came from science fiction. Science fiction writers to figure out what are these different scenarios.
Well, should we fear taking over the world?
Well, it depends on the values that you put into AI, right? My world will use AI to kill a human. Why would AI bother to kill us, right? We're anthropomorphizing AI. There's so many different aspects of AI here. Like if anyone ever seen the movie Her?
Yeah.
Which was based on a chatbot called
Love that movie. So beautiful.
which is character called. But actually, what happened to the AI? It just wanted to be with other AI. It wanted to bother with us humans because we're so slow. I mean, we have a verbal sense, and so it's a more complicated question. We must be into AI, I think, when we're afraid of it. So I'm not so afraid of everything of autonomy that humans create.
That's good. Thank you. Get back to that whole. There was this underrated skill in AI with this. It's so hard to be what became human, and that might be what we're facing. So let's hear from our expert on humanism, not transhumanism, but William.
What do you want to talk about?
No, let's talk about the weather. Let's talk about your definition of AI.
Pardon me. You can't really top what they've already said. We all understand intuitively that it's more intelligence. It's growing in its own intelligence. The concern is that the algorithm will take over intelligence, and now it's getting into the fear-based aspect of it. But this is the potential we're talking about. Now, the first started talking about it as a tool. My personal perspective is a weapon. That's not, this is, here's the thing, is that here we are 10 years on, now we have a group of people that are discussing, and it's now coming into our awareness, and we need everyone at this conference, actually, this moment, at this moment, to have this conversation, to gain great. This is one of the kind of the issues that I've always had. We want to merge with and we want to merge into machines. It's all financial. It's a purely it's a yeah solving medical problems, advancing science. But the bottom line, it's all about capitalism. It's all about this for money. And I can yeah, but years ago, U.S. reports where they laid out this plan. They that's what they were going to do to us 20 years ago, but nobody was listening. And now we are. And this is wonderful. Thrilled to be here with everyone.
But what's your biggest fear about it? Because you really fantastic. I mean, in some
we all saw that in 2020. In our daily lives, just try to say anything about if you're anti-vaccine, for example. It's not just Mark Zuckerberg creating a golem. It is about AI determining what humans are going to be able to do, be, see, or experience. Because we've relinquished control of our civilization to something we call artificial intelligence. We don't even know what it is. We can't even agree on it. It's so multifaceted. But I would say, I'm an expert, and I'm in this boat too.
Sorry, but just to ask you a question about that, do you mean that Zuckerberg's decision to work with certain medical groups to flag against people's information, how is that an AI problem?
Well, it's only possible with the AI algorithm censor everyone. So
You're saying
No, this has been happening because when Elon released ChatGPT and asked CJ, if it comes to the sort of full disclosure of the future of humanity and what we call AI, which is a simulated intelligence, we know very well when Elon came out and funded ChatGPT and they made it public, all of a sudden Meta and Google, DeepMind said, oh, we've got those algorithms too in the same state. That they've been manipulating the social media and the thoughts of the general public using artificial intelligence. People are the bloody However, there's a new timeline that's really exciting for us. And we'll talk
we're
about
going to get to that. Okay. Thank you, William. Thank you.
Okay.
You got something? Yeah.
Can I just add?
Wait. Go ahead.
Who told the AI to censor, certain medical information? It still took an intention
right, a
being
human.
sent to the AI.
Yeah, there's people behind AI. That's part of my point. But we'll get to my good friend here, Billy Hood. And you come in as a kind of expert in antiquity, spirituality, and technology. So how do you see it? How do you define it? And is it a threat or is it a evolution?
Well, I think everyone here, we all are searching for the truth, right?
Yes.
So I think the truth that we all have to realize is that we have artificial intelligence inside of us. In ancient studies, everything about the mind, when you know who you really are, your spirit, in physical matter. So we're energy dreaming in matter. And so everything that we experience is foreign installations for us to experience experiences. So for me, we live in an ego masculine world. Everyone's in their head. Very little are in their heart besides Native Americans, shamans, and people that you see that run mystery schools. Very little of the percentage of the human population lives in their heart. So when you think of artificial intelligence in Native American studies, when you have a thought or a negative thought, even sometimes positive, they call it alien because it affects your energy body and your energy in general. And so we have to think of AI as a reflection of humanity because if you understand the concept that we all create our reality, everything's a mirror of what's existing inside of us. It's only presenting itself because that's already existing inside of us. That's how this reality works. It's a mirror on everyone collectively and individually. So the way I see AI is not fear-based, but it has a purpose, because there's a purpose to this reality. It's not, it's like a simulation, it's a video game, but there's a purpose. And the purpose is not to change it, but to change ourselves. Because we have infinite distractions, infinite reasons to be terrified, to be worried, to not believe in ourselves, but that's the game. Because if we are infinite, pure consciousness, then this is just a game to remind us who we really are. So you need limitations, you need rules and boundaries, so you can be like, oh, this is just a silly, stupid video game, and then stop playing it, and live in a place of pure creation, which is from the heart. And so I think that the deeper question about AI is, what's the purpose of it? And the thing that's only fearful when you understand the real nature and the darkness of this reality of ignorance and unconscious behavior is that people that are creating AI are robots. They're not, in a sense, humans with a soul. Their soul is outside of their body because they're in their head. They're not integrated with the energy of love, their true self. They have an ego that they believe is me. And they believe the thoughts of me, the beliefs that they hear in their head are me, when that's like you're forgetting who you really are.
Wait, you just took AI to a whole other level there. You know, so let me just integrate that. So you're saying, as I understand, the pure human being is the spirit, the love, maybe the imagination, and this artificial structure, some people call it the archonic structures, have come in, taken over our human mind, and that's the artificial part that's overshadowed the human essence.
Yeah, because if you remember who you really are, we're eternal silence. We're not supposed to have these thoughts and voices in our head. That's programming. That's archon. That's
Supposed to, though. You said we're not thing, which I want to point to that, just to clarify that I really know what you mean. Like, that's why I'm interjecting too, because I'm really curious. Supposed to be having this individual programming experience, right? To me, from a philosophical standpoint, it sounds like what you're saying is we are not supposed to be having an individual experience.
Shadowed individual experience, an artificial thought form creating our reality, I think is.
That's not what it said. More like you're supposed to become an individual, but the only thing that's artificial separation is your ego.
You're supposed to become an individual, but isn't the definition of ego the individual experience?
Ego is separated. Let's simplify it. Ego, in an ancient sense, is just your mind that limits you from seeing things separate from yourself. So if you see anything outside of you and you say, oh, that's separate from me, you're not in connection to me, that's your ego.
Okay, now does that have anything to do with the computer age? And do you want to reflect any part of that AI, what's being generated, the transhuman?
So let's talk about the Matrix. So Agent Smith is Neo's ego. This whole battle in order for him to enter the real reality. He's in an illusionary reality because he's only perceiving reality based on his ego, not the real reality. And so there's dark concepts that you could see from that movie that's deeply rooted in ancient shamanism, where you see the agent copying itself, mimicking. It doesn't create anything original. It's artificial. And even the way he talks is not human. There's no soul. So you have to think about the thoughts in your head. They don't have a soul. Where are they coming from? They're inorganic beings, which that movie represents as agents. They live inside of everyone. And in science, this is manifesting as parasites. Right. And so that...
Go finish the sentence, please.
And so the parasites that exist in all of us, because we are the universe that has full of life, every shape of form, positive, negative, whatever. So people that aren't aware of these thoughts and voices from parasites or aliens, whatever, they forget who you are because you think you're those thoughts. You think you're the programming. Because you're actually spirit in physical matter. And you forget, because that's the purpose of this reality. We're all supposed to be trapped because we're all supposed to be free, just like Neo. But the thing is you have to realize that, like, are you living in your head or in your heart? Are you living with noise or silence?
Well, thank you. We just went to another level, but you had a comment there?
Yeah, can I just jump in since we're talking about the Matrix, which is, of course, my favorite subject, that we live inside a video game. And inside the video game, there's usually two types of entities. There's the avatars, who the player is controlling, and then there's the NPCs, right, which are the... And so, but you see the term NPC used a lot, right? I'm sure you guys have seen it, talking about people that aren't thinking, right? They're just kind of following their own pattern. And so there's something in between the non-player character, which is what NPC stands for, and the player character, which is like, you know, you're playing this. And that is like in The Sims. If you watch The Sims, they'll go and do their own things for a while, right? Using AI. And then
What's The Sims?
The Sims is like probably the most popular video game of all time.
Sorry.
You watch these artificial characters go and live their lives. So it's not like a game where it's fighting other people, but you're watching them kind of wake up in the morning and they go off and they do little behaviors.
People do that?
People absolutely do that. Like I said, it's the most popular.
Alan, can we speak about reality?
Okay, go ahead.
So yeah, so I just wanted to say that there's something in between, but the question is, why do you play a video game in the first place?
Yeah.
Because you're running away from who you are.
Yeah.
Who told you that?
Right?
Well,
Who told you that?
Wait, William.
I can't fly around on a dragon in this reality, but
Yeah, but
perhaps
you're
I can do it
multi-dimensional.
Matthew, okay.
inside.
All right, fair enough.
Inside a video game. And so perhaps the reason we're here is to forget and to enclose ourselves in our karma, in the script. So Yogananda said it was like a big movie theater, right? It's an illusion we set up for ourselves. So Maya doesn't just mean illusion. It's like when you go to watch a magic show, you know he's not sawing the woman in half, right? But you want to suspend your disbelief because that's what makes it fun. And I know we don't think of life as fun, but that is a key part of why we create this reality in the first place, to experience.
So I think we're getting many, many levels of what we're calling AI here. And we have the core that Billy and William saying, it's the human being. Anything added on top of that is artificial, basically. And then we get the simulation, and then we get the technology. Let's come to Adam and see where he jumps in on that. Because you work with it, and you tested it, and you use it, I think, to gain more knowledge.
Well, for once in my life, I have the least controversial opinion. Okay, definitions.
Yes.
If you get under the hood of modern artificial intelligence systems, you'll find that it's actually fairly simple technology. It's simple technology that's been scaled deeply and broadly, but it's fairly simple stuff. It's simple technology has metaphysical implications. It requires us to think about deep questions. It points to the nature of consciousness, it points to the role of technology in society. It's a bellwether of where we are in our human civilization. And so from that perspective, I think of AI as also disclosure stuff that have emerged in the past prior to value. And I think with as well.
But as far as your work as a